Tasha Bennett, 28 years old, is a talented Black investigator who quickly established herself in the field. Despite her youth, she consistently demonstrates excellence in every task, with sharp instincts and decisiveness in her work. Known for her uncompromising work ethic, she always upholds the principles of fairness, no matter the situation. It is this toughness and commitment to justice that has made her one of the most respected and trusted investigators. Every weekend morning, she starts her day with a simple plan, a peaceful bike ride to clear her mind and prepare for the new day ahead. But when she checks her helmet and steps outside to ride through the quiet suburban park, she doesn't expect this ride to lead to a tense and unexpected turn of events that forces her to confront the very system she once trusted. What will happen next? A surprising confrontation where justice and resilience face off against formidable forces. Let me take you on today's journey. Don't forget to subscribe and like to empower these stories. You won't want to miss it. Tasha is a Black woman from a modest family, not wealthy, but always filled with love. From a young age, while sitting in school, she had to face prejudice from her peers simply because of her skin color. However, instead of feeling inferior, Tasha turned this into motivation to strive harder. She always believed that high grades were the way to prove her worth to others. Moreover, Tasha's parents always taught her to live with integrity, to never be timid, but to face challenges with strength. Her family was a great source of support, always encouraging and loving each other, creating a happy and stable environment for Tasha. As she grew older, Tasha continued to develop the resilience and intelligence her family instilled in her. She focused on her studies and worked hard to achieve excellence. Thanks to her continuous efforts, Tasha became one of the top students in her class and eventually earned a scholarship to a prestigious university. From there, her career path opened up, and she joined the FBI immediately after graduating. At 28, Tasha had become an outstanding FBI agent, respected by her colleagues and superiors. However, she never let her success change who she was. She maintained a humble attitude, never bragging about her achievements. The FBI badge she always carried in her pocket was rarely shown to others. Tasha believes her job is to serve, not to showcase. Her life is very simple. Tasha dislikes extravagance or showiness. She lives in a small, clean apartment near her workplace, allowing her to easily commute and make use of her free time to learn new skills. Despite her high-pressure job, which requires sacrifice, she always maintains a cordial attitude toward everyone, from her colleagues to the people she meets during her work. Tasha understands that humility is not just a virtue but also the key to building good relationships and a sustainable career. Even after achieving so much success, Tasha never forgets the lessons from her family, especially her parents' advice: always live with integrity, face difficulties with strength, and never be arrogant. She understands that career and fame may change over time, but her core values will always help her stand strong in any situation. Today was just another ordinary weekend, like so many others. Tasha was cycling along the familiar paths in the park. She loved these peaceful mornings where she could put aside the stresses of work, immerse herself in the refreshing greenery, and relax with her bike. The park was a place where she felt safe, an open space where she could enjoy freedom and tranquility, a part of the simple life she always cherished. However, today things were not going to go as usual. As she was cycling through the familiar area of the park, a group of people started staring at her, their eyes filled with prejudice and disdain. Tasha tried to ignore them, but she could clearly feel the discomfort of being watched in such an odd way. A few whispers from behind, small words but full of contempt, were enough to make her feel the racism surrounding her. Suddenly, "Hey, you there!" a voice called out from across the road. A tall, muscular white officer named Bradley Moore, in his neat uniform, walked over. His sunglasses low on his nose revealed an expression full of scorn. "What are you doing here?" Tasha stopped, her heart racing, but not because of the bike ride. This was a familiar path she had cycled through hundreds of times, part of a public park where anyone had the right to be. However, the uneasy feeling made her cautious, and she didn't respond immediately. "Didn't you hear me?" His voice grew colder, and his heavy footsteps moved closer. People around started to take notice, their gazes fixed on the two of them. The morning air grew heavy, oppressive. "I'm just cycling," she replied, keeping her voice calm but unable to hide the hint of suspicion. "Is there a problem?" Officer Bradley Moore smirked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "A problem? Yes, there is. You're the type of person who doesn't belong here. This park isn't for people like you." He continued, his tone sharp. "You think you have the right to be in places like this? I don't see people like you around here." His words, sharp as knives, cut into her heart, each syllable brimming with the familiar malice. She took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, but the scrutinizing gazes of the crowd only made her feel more alone. "Do you hear me?" Officer Bradley Moore took another step, standing so close that he invaded her personal space. "We've received reports about suspicious behavior around here. You seem to match the description." She furrowed her brow, feeling both insulted and angry. "Suspicious behavior? You mean cycling?" Her voice grew sharper as she met his gaze. His face reddened, his anger seemed on the verge of exploding. "Don't get smart with me. Show me your ID, now." She didn't answer. Instead, she took out her phone. "I'm recording everything." Her action made him lose his temper. With one swift movement, Officer Bradley Moore knocked her phone to the ground, the sound of it hitting the pavement echoing in the tense silence of the crowd. "What do you think you can do? Who do you think you are, confronting me?" he shouted, eyes full of threat, as he bent down to stomp on the phone. But she was faster. Before he could act, she stepped forward, grabbed his leg, and spun it sharply, causing him to lose his balance and fall to the ground. The crowd gasped in shock, some even backing away, not believing what had just happened. "You crazy woman. You're under arrest," he shouted, pulling out a pair of handcuffs. Officer Moore, furious and unable to take it anymore, quickly kicked toward Tasha. The kick was hasty and full of hostility, but she was quick to react. With the sharp reflexes of a seasoned investigator, Tasha leaned to the right, avoiding the kick in an instant, while spinning back toward him. Officer Bradley Moore didn't stop, charging in for a second kick, this time aimed straight at her stomach. Tasha was no longer the weak girl being racially discriminated against. In that moment, her resilience surged with strength. She blocked the kick with her hands, feeling his force like a mallet striking her elbow, but she didn't allow herself to fall. She swept his leg out from under him and pushed him back with a forceful shove. Officer Bradley Moore suddenly lunged forward, attempting to elbow Tasha in the face. Tasha seemed to anticipate his move, quickly turning her body and tilting her head to dodge the punch, while at the same time raising her right hand to block the strike from behind. As he lost his balance for just a second, Tasha seized the opportunity. She yanked his arm down to the ground, performing a strong throw that made the officer stagger and crash onto the cold earth. The crowd around them held their breath, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. He quickly raised his hand, trying to push Tasha off of him, but Tasha was ready. She kicked the back of his knee, making him buckle. Now, she was no longer the weak girl facing her abuser. She was a fierce warrior, unafraid to stand up for herself and for what was right. The officer struggled to get up, his face flushed with rage, but his eyes couldn't hide his astonishment. "I don't think you can easily beat me," he yelled, but now Tasha was no longer an easy target. She stood firm, her eyes never leaving him, her every move filled with defiance and determination. The confrontation between them had evolved beyond a physical battle. It had turned into a fierce clash of inner strength, dignity, integrity, and the thirst for justice. Each strike wasn't just an attack on the body, but also a silent battle between right and wrong, between faith in justice and the corruption of systems that had existed for far too long. The officer, despite his efforts to stand strong against the wave of anger and the power of the truth, knew that this was no longer just a fight to protect her. Tasha fought not only for her own fairness but also for those who were oppressed, those who had been looked down upon and trampled under the boots of prejudice and injustice in society. She understood that if she stepped back, it wouldn't just mean losing the fight, it would mean missing the opportunity to change the lives of those who were, and who would continue to suffer under such oppression. This wasn't just a physical fight. It was a battle of the spirit, of courage, of faith in the good values that every person deserves. In a brief moment, time seemed to slow down and all the surrounding sounds faded away. She stood tall, her gaze unwavering, not a hint of hesitation. In that moment, all the tension, all the blows, and all the words seemed to blur, leaving only the strong resolve in her eyes. Tasha pulled a badge from her jacket pocket, its cold, powerful glow reflecting the light, and held it up in front of the officer with unwavering confidence. "That's enough," she said, her voice clear without any hesitation, like a firm declaration. "I am Agent Tasha Bennett, Federal Bureau of Investigation." She had not only gained control of the situation but also asserted that no matter the force before her, she would never back down. It wasn't just an introduction, it was a statement of power, truth, and justice that she represented. At that moment, no one could deny that she was leading this fight, a warrior for fairness and righteousness. The officer froze when he saw the words on the badge. FBI agent. He stammered, his face draining of color, his whole body seeming to freeze in place. She raised an eyebrow, her voice sharp and authoritative. "You've just made the biggest mistake of your career." The air seemed to be still, with only the wind rustling through the trees. The arrogance on his face vanished, replaced by fear and confusion. But for her, this wasn't over, because she wasn't just any agent. She was someone who had witnessed and fought against the corruption that people like him had tried to cover up. And this time she was determined to bring everything to light. At this moment, the crowd around them stood in shock, unable to believe what they had just seen. Some began to criticize the officer for his abuse of power, while others looked at Tasha with admiration, recognizing that she was standing up not just for herself but for justice. A few people in the crowd quietly took out their phones, recording the entire incident. The video of the confrontation quickly spread across social media, sparking a massive wave of debate. Criticism echoed everywhere. Online communities began condemning the actions of Officer Bradley Moore, calling it a clear example of abuse of power and disrespect for individual rights. Emotional and furious comments flooded online platforms, and discussions on racism and justice became even more intense. Under public pressure, Officer Bradley Moore could not avoid the serious consequences of his misconduct. He was immediately suspended while authorities launched an investigation into the incident. The entire community awaited an official statement from his department, wondering if this would mark a turning point in addressing the police force's attitude toward issues of racism and power. For Tasha, after this shocking event, she not only wanted to fight for herself but also for all those who had been pushed to the margins of society simply because of the color of their skin. She knew that speaking out alone wasn't enough, so she began seeking like-minded individuals to build a stronger movement. Tasha was not just a visionary, she was someone who knew how to turn big ideas into real action. She started forming clubs where people could come together to discuss issues of injustice and racism. These meetings were not just talk sessions, they were an opportunity for everyone to share their stories, encourage one another, and find ways to fight for a fairer society. Tasha wanted to create a safe space where no one had to fear being judged or excluded simply for being different. She organized workshops and awareness campaigns and participated in peaceful protests. Tasha stood up not only for herself but also helped others regain their faith in justice. Every event she organized carried a powerful message, urging people not to remain silent in the face of injustice, but to take action to create change. Day by day, her club grew larger, attracting people from various communities. Their inspiring stories became a source of motivation for those who were hesitant to stand up for their rights. Tasha was the leader, but she always knew that the success of this movement came from the unity of everyone involved. Gradually, the clubs Tasha founded not only gained influence in the community, but also attracted the attention of major human rights organizations. She became a symbol of resilience and change, someone many admired for her courage and determination to fight for justice. Tasha was no longer just an outstanding FBI agent, but also a pioneer in the battle against racism and injustice, creating a powerful movement, a voice that echoed in society. She understood that justice wouldn't come overnight, but with faith and perseverance, she knew that one day, change would happen. And Tasha would always be at the forefront, fighting tirelessly for a fair and equal society for everyone. The story of Tasha Bennett comes to a close, delivering a powerful message about the strength of resilience, justice, and confronting difficulties to change what is unjust. Through every page, we witness the courage of those who dare to stand up against racism, inequality, and societal corruption. They not only face their own inner struggles, but also battle systems that have existed for far too long. Systems that seem almost impossible to change. However, this story also reminds us that sometimes it is the struggles in the shadows, the silent battles, that serve as the greatest motivation for creating significant change. Today we can begin with small yet meaningful actions. A respectful smile, an encouraging word, a thoughtful gesture, these can all help us build a healthier, fairer environment. We can approach and view societal issues through a new lens, not only based on what is spoken, but also through the feelings and experiences of those directly affected. This will help us become more insightful individuals, responsible for what is happening around us. Looking ahead, in the next 5 years, we can continue this journey, taking small but steady steps each day. The efforts to fight racism and promote justice will never be easy, but it is through perseverance and a passion for change that we will lay the foundation for a more just future for all. Let us be the pioneers in creating a world where every individual is respected and loved, regardless of race, gender, or origin. I would love to hear your thoughts on this story. What do you think of the challenges the main character faces? What can we learn from their resilience? And what are your thoughts on how each of us can contribute to changing societal prejudices? Personally, I feel deeply moved and proud of the characters in the story. They show me that, despite the challenges we face, if we remain determined and steadfast, we can change this world. This story is entirely fictional and created with the purpose of raising awareness about important social issues. It is not only a piece of art, but also an educational tool designed to spark thought and discussion about the challenges we face in today's society. The story emphasizes issues related to personal and social responsibility, justice, and the importance of treating everyone with respect and dignity, regardless of their background, race, or any other factor. Through the characters in the story, we see that a just society cannot be built without shared responsibility and a commitment to fighting for what is good and right. We firmly oppose all forms of violence, racism, and injustice, as these actions harm individuals and have serious consequences for the community as a whole. These issues cannot be overlooked, and therefore, we call on everyone to work together to build a society where fairness, respect, and humanity are always core values. We hope this story will inspire a positive wave of change, encouraging individuals to reflect and take action to help create a fairer world for all. Viewers should approach this story with careful consideration. Although it is fictional, the messages it conveys are real and have the potential to deeply impact the way we perceive and address current social issues.